Tu sais, c'est tout le temps un peu des rappels, puis il y a aussi beaucoup de travail de guérison.
Tonight, a conference on suicide in Montreal offers hope and healing.
I'm ready to celebrate. I'm ready to feel that sense of pride, and I want to share that.
A new EP by singer Shaunie Kish drops this week.
At a young age, there's not a lot of representation to look up to. Personally, that's something that I struggled with.
And the Toronto Raptors promote Indigenous athletes in a new campaign. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. A documentary about Buffy Sainte-Marie's life and music career has won an International Emmy Award. Buffy Sainte-Marie Carry It On won in the Arts Programming category on Monday night. It was directed by Madison Thomas and narrated by Sainte-Marie herself. Last month, her Indigenous ancestry was challenged in a CBC investigation. Sainte-Marie denied the accusations before the CBC story aired. There were calls for the Emmy nomination to be rescinded, but a statement posted on the website of White Pine Pictures, who co-produced the documentary, says it stands behind Buffy and believes she is of Canadian Indigenous descent. Meanwhile, a post on X from the Indigenous Women's Collective calls the award a slap in the face. It states in part, quote, "Pretendianism is an act of colonial violence and should never be celebrated." In Ottawa, a national Indigenous and Human Rights ombuds person is being looked at again this week. One of the MMIWG national inquiry's calls for justice called for its establishment. The ombudsperson would receive complaints from Indigenous peoples and communities. It would also conduct independent evaluations of government services for First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. The Standing Committee on Indigenous Peoples heard from the Special Rapporteur on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, Jose Francisco Caletize, said the world is watching. He said the ombudsperson has to be created with the participation of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples and include free legal representation for Indigenous people.
The ombudsperson office has to have the power of investigation, but also we can say an independent body to investigate and to bring all the proofs that is going to help Indigenous people.
To Manitoba now, where the newly elected NDP government gave its first speech from the throne Tuesday.
Her Honor, the Lieutenant Governor.
Lieutenant Governor Anita Neville opened the first session of the 43rd Manitoba Legislature. Tuesday's address listed a number of goals Premier Wab Kinew's new government hopes to achieve. That includes funding for a geothermal heat pump program for homeowners, reducing the backlog in hospitals, and building relationships with Indigenous governments and peoples. The speech also briefly touched on the search of the Prairie Green landfill for the remains of 3 missing First Nations women. It did not make any new commitments.
We have begun to honor our commitment to search the landfill for the remains of Mercedes Myron, Morgan Harrison, and Mushkode Bishke Ikwe Iban. Our first step was welcoming their families into the legislature, where we promised that no government in Manitoba will ever use the families of murder victims as political props again.
For the third consecutive year, the Department of Fisheries and Oceans and 4 Mi'kmaq nations in southwestern Nova Scotia have renewed an interim agreement to harvest lobster to earn a moderate livelihood, which happens to be the most lucrative fishing area in the country. Community members of the 4 Mi'kmaq First Nations will harvest lobster and sell their catch under community-developed moderate livelihood fishing plans, but the authorized harvesters will do so with licenses issued by DFO. The Mi'kmaq fishers are expected to drop over 5,000 authorized traps during the commercial fishing season, the same number of traps as last year. DFO says this will not impact healthy lobster stocks. Over to Saskatchewan, and a new report says the city of Prince Albert has the highest level of drugs in its wastewater in the country. According to Stats Canada, Prince Albert had the highest amount of cocaine, methamphetamine, and amphetamines in municipal wastewater per capita for 2022 and 2023. Nearly half of the city's population is Indigenous. The data was collected by Canadian Wastewater Survey, which began in 2019. The report says wastewater data can give an understanding of current drug use across Canada and help with public health and law enforcement responses. A suicide prevention and life promotion conference happened in Montreal this last week, where the latest edition emphasized healing through culture. Amelia Fournier has more.
Stéphanie Yancey-Héroux-Brazeau has been coming to the Dialogue for Life conference for years as a volunteer and, more recently, as a powwow dancer. She finds it helpful for healing from suicides that touched her Anishinaabe community of Lac-Simon in northwestern Quebec.
Ici, c'est tout le temps un peu des rappels, puis il y a aussi beaucoup de travail de guérison. Justement, je pense que les powwows, c'est aussi un moment où est-ce qu'on peut évacuer, qu'est-ce qu'on a besoin d'évacuer.
At the conference's workshops, Yancey-Héroux-Brazeau says she's learned that culture is vital to suicide prevention.
Je pense que c'est vraiment de retourner à nos sources, qui qu'on est, d'être fier de qui qu'on est, de retourner vers nos manières de vivre qui ont été beaucoup effacées.
Marc Lafontaine, an Innu from Mangan, hosted a workshop about his work leading sharing circles for men.
Mon défi, c'est habituer au monde, aux hommes surtout, à verbaliser. Parce qu'un homme, ça pleure pas. Mais c'est pas vrai. Un homme, c'est fort. Ça parle pas, mais il faut verbaliser.
He says traditional land-based activities help men open up.
Mais quand ils sont dans le bois, là, c'est d'autres hommes, yes, c'est merveilleux. Ils sont plus positifs, plus joyeux, ça parle plus, fait des jokes. Ça change. Le milieu, tu changes les milieux, tu changes la mentalité, le mode de vie d'un homme.
And so it's really important to do these practices where we are also sharing about ourselves.
A queer Anishinaabe man, Connor Lafortune, shared his life promotion toolkit he created with a group of young Indigenous people.
Often in the Western world, we're talking about a very specific view of Indigenous people, and because of this toolkit, we can change those narratives. We can switch it towards a strength base and remove that deficit language that we're often speaking about Indigenous people, removing that biomedical model that Indigenous people are often only seen through.
This toolkit gives guidance to community workers for how to encourage young Indigenous people to value and accept themselves.
I think for me, the experiences that have marked me the most are those emotional experiences that I've seen in community. Often there are folks that are coming, often in tears, telling us that they finally feel seen and heard because of our toolkit.
Dialogue for Life also offers healers and ceremony for attendees. Viviane Snowboy, a Cree mother, led cedar bath ceremony at the conference.
I grew up in ceremony, and I've seen my father when I was a little girl, watching him help people and watching him, create a safe space for them to heal. And I've seen some amazing transformations amongst our people, especially the ones that, would think you would never see change.
Snowboy also hosted a workshop about her work advocating for Indigenous people going through the justice system. She says often the justice system worsens mental health for Indigenous people.
The justice system really needs to take a step back again, and we need our own restorative justice, because that's what helps our people, and I've seen it help our people, because then people are healing.
The next Dialogue for Life conference will take place in March 2024. Emilia Fournier, APTN National News, Montreal.
An Anishinaabe basketball player is among those who have teamed up with the Toronto Raptors and the Toronto Transit Commission. That story and more still to come. Welcome back. The Toronto Raptors teamed up with the city's Transportation Commission to showcase Indigenous athletes from across the country. Tamara Pimentel has that story.
Anishinaabe basketball player Emily Mandamin is one of 8 athletes being featured in the campaign, which celebrates Indigenous athletes in Canada. From the Iskatewazaghigan First Nation in northwestern Ontario, Mandamin is enrolled with the Manitoba Bisons basketball program.
At a young age, there's not a lot of representation to look up to. Personally, that's something that I struggled with, finding somebody that I could relate to and finding somebody that I could talk to or look to for guidance. And so I think that's kind of been the message I've been trying to convey, as well as other athletes at a high level, trying to show that we are here and playing high-level basketball and high-level sports is a thing for us.
The Raptors partnered with the Toronto Transportation Commission for the campaign. Buses and streetcars throughout the city show photos of Indigenous athletes making history in Canada.
That's been our whole goal so far, is telling our stories and talking about the things that we had to go through in order to find our place within sport and wellness. Sport can be a way of medicine and can be a way of life. Oftentimes in Indigenous communities, we find ourselves struggling with substance abuse, mental health issues, poverty. I'm a product of that, and I struggled a lot with my mental health at a young age, but I often found my way at the basketball court. You know, sport can be a happy avenue for us in our future.
Tamara Pimentel, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
The vote for National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations is a little more than 2 weeks away. Tonight we wrap up our interviews with the 6 candidates running for the job. Craig Mao is a former AFN regional chief for Alberta, a chief of Ermineskin, and a former Grand Chief of the Confederacy of Treaty 6. I spoke with Mao late last week. Craig Mao, thanks for being with us. It's been a tumultuous year for the Assembly of First Nations with the former National Chief's removal this past summer, claims of bullying and harassment within the organization as well. What do you think needs to be done for the AFN to move forward?
Well, there needs to be a series of meetings with the staff, the executive, and the chiefs. So it's going to take a little while to get these meetings in order, but once you get them in order and start dealing with what were the issues at that time, and to move ahead and make the necessary changes that need to be made so that the AFN office, working with the staff and the chiefs, will work together again as it should be.
There are a number of First Nations people, of course, who say they feel the AFN no longer has their best interests at heart. What would you say to those people, and how would you improve relations between the AFN and the nations it represents?
Yeah, that's been a comment heard over the years, and that needs to be worked on, because I know with how relations between the chiefs and the AFN national offices, we need to work on that, so that to make AFN more of a advocacy group and work in conjunction with the chiefs, so that when we do work with the government, it's the chiefs that are going to be leading the way, not AFN. So that's one thing I'd like to change, is how the national office works with the chiefs and the federal government. So I think we could start working on that process. Things will improve as we go along.
If you were elected as the next national chief, what would be your highest priority for the AFN?
Well, there's so many issues that are on table, but I think right now would be to get the office in order, and then working with the chiefs, and then working on wellness issues, because I know there's so many issues out there, especially under wellness, that needs to be dealt with our members across the country.
What would you like to see the Assembly of First Nations accomplish in the coming year?
Well, just to get that stability back in place and start moving ahead, because there's a lot of issues that are on the table right now, and a lot of legislation that we need to keep track of and work on together, because these legislations will affect us in the future, so we have to be prepared as we get to the table and discuss these issues with the federal government, because we need to work on protecting our treated inherent rights as we move forward and in these discussions with the federal government.
Craig Mao, we'll have to leave it there, but thanks for taking some time. Best of luck to you in the campaign.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Have a good day.
You can watch our interviews with all 6 of the candidates for APTN National Chief over on our APTN News YouTube page. Still to come, a Cree oil worker turned model has taken home a big honor. Stick around. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. And Tamara Pimentel wanted to share this picture, a walk with her dogs in White Shell Provincial Park, located in southeastern Manitoba. Can't believe all that snow's gone already. Thanks for sharing, Tamara. If you have a picture to share, send that photo to share@aptn.ca. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, 5 in Halifax, +2 with snow in Fredericton. Flurries and 3 below for Kuujjuaq, -1 in Nain. 5 above in Montreal, snow and 0 for Val-d'Or. +3 in Sault Ste. Marie, snow and a high of 3 in North Bay. 3 is the high for Thunder Bay, -3 with snow in Sioux Lookout. 11 below and snow in Churchill, -5 in God's Lake. 0 in Winnipeg, -4 in Dauphin. 4 above and cloudy for Regina, -5 in Saskatoon. 7 below with snow in Meadow Lake, -18 in Uranium City. In northern Alberta, snow and -12 for High Level and Fort McMurray. -3 with snow in Edmonton, +1 in Red Deer. 8 above in Vancouver, 10 for Victoria. +2 in Prince George, 1 above in Smithers. -19 in Old Crow, 10 below for Whitehorse. -18 in Yellowknife, -16 in Norman Wells. 12 below in Sax Harbor, -15 with snow in Paulatuck. 9 below and snow in Chesterfield, -15 in Whale Cove. -24 in Resolute, 21 below with snow in Joe Haven. Well, if you tuned in on Friday, you may remember we showcased Tyson Martel, a Cree model from Saskatchewan, as he was preparing for the International Indigenous Arts and Fashion Awards. Martel was an oil worker who became a model in his 40s, and Sunday night, just 19 months into his career, he took home the Male Model of the Year award in Edmonton. He says friends and family were on hand to watch him accept the honor.
Very honored and grateful to be nominated, or just to be nominated, but to win it is such a great feeling. And, I hope that this story inspires someone else, to chase their dreams. Just if that feeling's inside of you, it's there for a reason. You got to chase those things, right? That's your spirit talking to you and telling you have to do those things.
Congrats to Tyson on all the other award winners. Singer-songwriter Shaunie Kish is celebrating life with her newest EP called Revolution. Sav Jones talked with Kish about the inspiration for her music.
Shaunie Kish has a powerful voice and a lot to say.
I'm ready to celebrate. I'm ready to feel that sense of pride, and I want to share that.
The singer-songwriter from Welland, Ontario is getting it all out there with her new EP, Revolution.
I wanted to say how strong I feel. And I feel like this new part of my life is a bit of a revolution in the sense where I finally feel strength and pride in who I am, where I've come from, what I've gone through. And I was ready to say that in a vulnerable way with songs like For Me, but also celebrate with songs like Haunt and Stella.
Collaborations with artists such as Sarah Quinn and Max Kerman mark a first for the artist who usually writes alone.
There were things in my kind of career and in my writing that I felt like I really wanted. Like I wanted to celebrate who I am. I was ready to like celebrate those things and celebrate the strengths, and writing with these people helped kind of bring that out.
A Two-Spirit Mohawk, Kish initially struggled with music industry bigwigs due to homophobia, but decided to be true to herself.
Being Two-Spirit is just like, it's the foundation, it's the very core, it's the very being and the heartbeat of like who I am. It's the spirits of who I am.
She says combining teachings from her culture with the power of music helped her along her journey to self-discovery.
It gave me a voice. It gave me a purpose. It gave me strength. And all of a sudden, throughout the years, I felt like I do have a reason. I do have strength. I can speak on behalf of myself, on behalf of what I've learned, on behalf of what I've experienced, but in turn, be that voice for the person who may not feel that strength quite yet because they haven't gotten there, the place that I was in my younger teens.
Kish says her music saved her life during bouts of depression and encourages others to find power in their struggle.
The power that you have with the pain that you feel, like the strength you have no idea now, but one day you could walk into a room the way I do now and go, actually, that what I felt back then has made me who I am today. And so it's so important to me to share that.
Sab Jonesa, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Some great sounding tunes there. Well, Métis lawyer, podcaster, and author Kyla Lee is our guest on an all-new episode of Face to Face tonight, right after the news. She wanted to be a lawyer since elementary school and thought she would practice Indigenous law, but decided on criminal law while in school. Lee says having Indigenous lawyers working in different areas of law helps break down barriers.
And I think seeing Indigenous people who are real estate lawyers and who are civil litigation lawyers and who do wills and estates and all sorts of areas of law tells young Indigenous people who are looking for role models, look, you can be anything you want to be, and then within that profession you can do anything you want to do, and there's no barriers facing you just because you're Indigenous. There's no required pathway that you have to follow. Do what makes you happy. The world is and should be your oyster.
And you can watch our entire interview with Kyla Lee on Face to Face in less than 90 seconds time. Of course, for much more Indigenous news, you can always head on over to our website. That's aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward, Marcy. Thanks for being with us. Have a great night.